Adobe Dimension makes it easy for Photoshop users to truly visualize their creation. You'll see how adding assets you create in Adobe Photoshop, including a logo and texture to branded collateral in Adobe Dimension, allows you to visualize what it will look like, making 3D design simple. In Adobe Photoshop, I've created a few versions of a logo, each on a separate artboard, as well as a texture with pattern. Both will be used as artwork for the brand collateral pieces. Back in Adobe Dimension, you can open this starting file. From the practice file, if you want to follow along, you can see there are a series of 3D models already on the canvas. A coffee cup, a bag, and others. Some with logos and other artworks on them. You will add another model to the scene. From the Starter Assets panel, where you can see a lot of assets that come with Dimension. Scroll down and drag this bag into your design. Placing it here. Now, to resize the bag, use the Scale tool. You can press the letter S to access this tool. Press the Shift key, drag here to make it smaller. Now, to rotate it, select the Rotate tool. You can also press the letter R to access the tool. And drag the green or white value here. Now, if you look in the Scene panel on the right, you'll see a layering of all the content in the scene, including the new bag. In the Scene panel, you can hide and show as well as lock content. Now, come out of the artwork, double-click right on the bag to see the properties for it, such as the material on the right, change the color of the bag, click the property swatch, and with color selected, select the black. Now, instead of applying the color to the bag, you can also apply content from Photoshop as a material. Select Image, click the photo icon, navigate the texture small PSD file from the downloadable file. Click Open, and then the texture is applied. You'll see a series of options like positions and rotation. You can now set for this material. Click away from the menu to hide it, and the bag is also deselected. Next, you add the Photoshop logo to the bag. You can do this by copying and pasting content directly from Photoshop onto the selected model or importing a file. Double-click the bag and edit the properties again. Click Place Graphic on Model in the Action section here. In the dialog box that occurred, select the logo PSD file from the practice file you downloaded. Embed it in the document, and then click OK, open. Once the logo is on the bag, you can drag the middle of the logo to move it. You can rotate it by dragging here. Now to scale it, press the Shift key and drag any of these points. Because this was imported as a Photoshop file, you can select which logo to use by choosing the correct artboard. From the Photoshop file right here in Dimension, in the Properties panel, to try one of the alternative logos. Click the image swatch to see the logo. Try choosing another version from the artboard menu. Make sure you wind up with this version before you move on. Now to make a change to the logo artwork in Photoshop. Double-click the logo thumbnail to open in Photoshop. In Photoshop, you can see the layer content and to make any changes necessary. I'll simply drag the logo up, then save the file. Return to the dimension, you should be able to see the changes. Next, you add an image to the background of the scene. There are a number of ways to add images from Photoshop, including dragging in an image file, including PSD. Dragging content saved in a Creative Cloud library. By choosing libraries here on the left, you can also go to Photoshop, simply copy the image content right into Dimension. In the Starter Assets panel on the left, scroll down to see the default images. Drag the table image into the background and add it to the scene. Now, to instantly align and align the scene using info from the background image, click the Match Image button on the right. To make some overall lighting adjustments to the scene, you can click Environment in the Scene panel on the right. If it isn't already there. You can then make some adjustments in the Properties panel to adjust the lighting. And maybe click the arrow to show the options for sunlight if they aren't already showing. And make a few more adjustments. With the scene ready, you can render or create the final image. Click Render in the upper left corner to switch to render mode. In the render setting on the right, you can configure your final rendered file. You can select which views to render. In this case, the current view will work fine. You can change the file name. You can change the quality. Low, fast takes less time to render, but it doesn't look good. You can choose a location to save the file. And finally, choose the format. I'll make sure PSD 16 bits channel because Dimension will give us layered PSD file, which we can then further edit in Photoshop. Click Render, and note that depending on the design content and the render settings, the time will take to render may vary. After the file is rendered, you can open the PSD in Photoshop here. With the file open in Photoshop, if you look at the layers panel, you can see a series of masks that is operated by Dimension. You can also see the content here. And the background image here. I'll make a few final adjustments by selecting this model content layer and applying a color layer to give the overall image a specific look. With the content layer selected, I will drag the model content a little bit more into the center of the table. There we go. Thanks to the ease of this editing, Adobe Dimension gives Photoshop user ability to visualize product shots, branding, collateral, and unique digital images. Adobe Dimension makes 3D design simple. Give Dimension a try today.